Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Math and STEM, where our mission is to reach out to as many professionals, aspiring professionals, students, whatever you name it. We try to reach out to them, who essentially support the initiative of bringing more women and young girls into the STEM field. So, with that being said, as always, feel free to open up the description or transcript to better follow along, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hi, and thank you so much for coming today and talking with me. Just to sort of start off, do you mind introducing yourself as well as telling us why you decided to pursue a career or like studies in mathematics?
I'm Evan Chen. I'm a PhD student at MIT. Um, I kind of got into math through like math contest stuff when I was back when I was in like middle school and high school. Kind of haven't stopped doing that really. I still do a lot of like coaching for like the math competition related stuff, but yeah, still kind of here.
Sounds good. I was wondering how like doing math contest shaped your love or like got you into mathematics in the first place.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of care that's put into like the design of the contest question. This is something that I see on my side now because now that I'm actually organizing them, where I think they do, the organizers of the contest like try to do a really good job of trying to set questions that like both are interesting to the contestants. You know, they're problems that you would want to like you could show someone they would want to work on, but also are like instructive for them. Like I think I've learned, I've as far as teaching goes, I've kind of learned a lot about the power of like setting good problems and helping people like understand a new idea or in like learn a new topic or just like to appreciate like the power of a technique or like show something cool or something like this. So I think that's definitely like the design of the exam questions, I think, back when I was a student and then continuing even now, did a lot for, help both getting me interested into the area, but also like building like ability and skill in that area. I think a lot of people don't develop the kind of mathematical maturity that you get if you like are going through these kind of problems until much later in the process. And so that definitely was really helpful for me when I started at university and so on.
I think you mentioned that you work with students now in terms of like preparing them for math contests. I was just wondering
Mhm.
what your favorite part about that was and if you had any particular favorite moments that stood out to you.
Well, I think it's really rewarding. I kind of, you know, as far as students go, I kind of get the best students. It's really a big privilege to work with them. There are students who are like, well, very capable, also like really interested in the material, like really motivated, and you can kind of the enthusiasm rubs off on me as well. I think I think just as like like if you have a really good teacher, their enthusiasm is contagious. I think like when the students are really enthusiastic, I think the teachers can feel it too. Um, Yeah, it started off just kind of as a side thing that I did because when I was in my first couple of years undergraduate, there's a couple of students who were interested in working with me, so I was just kind of like, oh heck, why not? Let's try it and see what happens. It never stopped after that. Like the number, the number of students I have just keeps growing every year. Um, yeah, um, it definitely also helps me feel younger. It's like it kind of working with the high school students keeps me young, I think.
And then I saw on your website that you also do content creation. I was just wondering what was the inspiration behind that and what are some sort of challenges you encounter doing content creation and like why did you get into it in the first place?
It kind of honestly it mostly started as a joke. Like when the pandemic started, it was just kind of like, well, I have nothing to do because everything's just closed. So why don't I like stream stuff on Twitch and see what happens? And then people were like, wait, this is great. You should keep doing it. I'm like, every year I'm just like, yeah, I guess if people keep wanting this, keep doing it. But it's mostly for entertainment purposes. I don't claim to like provide very much educational value out of anything I put on YouTube. Uh. Yeah, but it is a lot of fun. It's kind of like because of the students I work with are kind of spread out all across the country. It's very rare that I actually get to see anyone in person. So this is like the closest that I get to like actually getting to spend some time with the students that I work with in sort of like a live format. Yeah.
And I think On top of like content creation, you seem to have a lot of like extracurricular games you enjoy. I was just wondering how you balance all your sort of interests on top of academic responsibilities.
Uh, with varying degrees of success. Uh, it's something I think the thing that I've learned is that energy management is more important than time management. Like I found that kind of it doesn't matter how many hours you have in the day. If you are excited about something, you'll find a way to make it happen. And then conversely, if I'm like not excited about something, there's no way it gets done, just no matter how many hours I have. Um, so yeah, I think kind of people have often asked me this question is like, how do I keep staying like motivated or way around? I work on whatever I'm excited or motivated about, and I don't try to control that. It's just whatever I feel like doing, I'm just gonna do it. Uh,
And then I think you mentioned that you work with students like across the country. I was wondering sort of how you sort of use technology and social media to like maintain that community and connect with your students.
it's all Discord now, is apparently what the kids use. But when I was a student, we did not have this Discord thing, so this is all very alien to me. But yeah, Discord is the thing that lets the students talk to each other. The other thing is that I've been very particular about is when I run my training program, I still actually manually review every submission that comes through, and a lot of people have asked me like why I don't outsource this. Yeah, the reason is kind of like, well, this is the only time I get to see what the students are doing. Like, I don't spend very long reading each submission to be clear, but I still want to be the one that kind of looks at it and like, answers the questions if the students have any and so on and so forth. This is also where I get most of my feedback from. Like, you know, I I send out these surveys every few months asking for like what can I do better. There's not that many responses to this survey. Most of the actual feedback I get is like embedded within the homework submissions. So that's kind of it's tough because just there's so many students now compared to when I first started running this program. But this is kind of how I try.
And it seems like you're really successful, like working with students. I was just wondering, what are some of your teaching philosophies in terms of like keeping students interested and keeping students, I guess, like continue to learn or like keeping them to like continue to learn?
So again, like I kind of said, like I am actually really lucky. I just the best, like I just get the best students. So my job is a lot easier than it would be for a lot of other teachers. I have a like, if you want to read more about this, I have a blog post about like my teaching philosophy for the for not the summer program, for the year-round program I run in general. I think a very short version for the interview, I would say, is something like, when you have really capable and really motivated students, which is something a lot of people don't have access to, but when you are in this situation, you can empower your students a lot. You don't have to micromanage them very much. You can give them a lot of autonomy to work on whatever they want to work on. Um, you can, and what was I going to say? Um, the things that are useful I found is one is like writing things down is really important. I kind of I kind of have a dim view of like the way that a lot of stuff is taught in like in a lot of other places where a lot of things are based on like in-person lectures or like video lectures or so on and so forth. I've had much more success with strong students with just like if you write something down once, you can like use it forever after. It's writing scales much better than any amount of like lecturing or giving talks or things like that will. And the other thing is there's a quote that I've come to really appreciate when doing this teaching thing, which is like this is a quote from Chris PD. Was where he's once said, "The most competent people with weak processes will screw up." And I think what I've come to understand is like when I'm trying to run this program or something like this, a lot of the work I do isn't actually very mathematical anymore. A lot of it is on the infrastructure side where I ended up writing my own web server in order to run my class because I wasn't. I really hate all those websites like Canvas and Coursera or whatever like the new fancy websites that all the school districts use. I was like, these are I don't know how to use these. I'm gonna just write my own just so that I could do exactly what I wanted to do. And yeah, like a surprisingly large amount of the work that I do for my teaching is actually just like writing code. It's like so much of it is now programming. Um, but yeah, the infrastructure side I think really matters. Um, one other thing I think that I've Yeah, one other thing I should say that I think is also in the blog post is that I think it's really important to have things that work in practice and not in theory. Um, I think when I first started teaching, I was like kind of idealistic about like, well, this thing should work in theory, so let's try it. And you really need things that actually work in practice and not just in theory.
I think on your website you have like a little subsection titled like please learn how to code or like something along the lines of that. I was just wondering like in your mathematics like studies, like how often does coding like pop up and like how important is it to like know coding as like a mathematician?
Well, I mean, I use code even in the math, right? Like when I don't, I guess you can't tell from, but like when I was doing calculations for like my PhD thesis, I also just learned to code. But I also just think I don't know. I think like I try to really give my students a lot of autonomy. So I like, don't try to tell them too much like, you should learn this thing or you should learn that thing. Like the only one that I make an exception for is that I do think everyone should at least have some sense of how to code because it's just uh I don't think I've had a job in a long time where I didn't have to use code in some way. I think also just uh okay. Uh
Oh, hi. Oh, okay, sure.
yeah. Mhm.
Sort of to continue on, I was wondering, or I saw
Uh-huh.
rather on your website that you're a PhD student specifically in number theory and combinatorics. I was just wondering, like, why those fields, or specifically, like, why those two topics out of like all the topics you could have chosen?
Mm. Uh, it's kind of a little. I think the combinatorics was kind of when I was an undergrad. I got to work at a couple undergrad research programs. One of them was the Duluth RAU run by Professor Joe Gallion, and the other was the. It used to be at Emory. I think it's at U Virginia now, but the number theory RAU run by Ken Ono. So like Duluth, the Joe's program in Duluth was combinatorics, and Ken Ono's program at now U Virginia was number theory. So I kind of got inherited like from there. It was just the things that I had worked on as an undergraduate, where I was just like, okay, let's keep doing this. It's kind of a weird choice because they're like about as far as possible from each other in my head, like in terms of how they feel. Like the combinatorics stuff is all very concrete. It's very down to earth. It's like it feels a lot more like the kind of things that I did in high school. And then number theory is just like most of the time I just like there's all these words that I don't know the definitions of, and I just kind of like, play it by ear. It's like, yeah, well, we'll do something. It'll be fine, maybe. But yeah, if you look at the um, wi- within a couple of months, my thesis thing is probably going to be uploaded somewhere. If you look at like the words in the document, you'll see what I mean. It's just kind of like it's very technical. Not even like I think the field that this particular subfield in number three that I'm working in, which is like related to like automorphic forms and the arithmetic fundamental lemma, I think is technical even by number theory standards. Is my impression. So it's fine.
Sounds good. And then just to sort of end off, I was wondering if you had any pieces of advice for students who are interested in studying mathematics in the future.
Ah, um, so I'm assuming this is like with like high school or undergrads in mind. Um, I'll actually be pretty specific about this. If you are someone who's like thinking about trying to do a math major in undergrad, the very first thing you want to do is like learn how to read and write a proof, because that's kind of the thing you need in order to do any of the math classes for math majors. I think a lot of people make this mistake of like trying to climb this like linear algebra, multivariable calculus ladder in the United States as quickly as possible. Um, you'll be if you like skipped all linear algebra and multivariable calculus or even AP calculus or whatever and learn how to write a proof, that will put you a lot further ahead than learning those specific topics. Um, Once you know how a proof works, the two sort of gateway topics that unlock everything else are anything like abstract algebra, so it's theories of groups, rings, fields, vector spaces, modules, etc., and a bit of like real analysis slash topology, so things like compact spaces, continuous functions, etc. And then once you have those two areas, you sort of are sitting at the base of like a very large tree of a lot of different math topics that you can learn. Um, if you like stuff that I write, I have a document called Napkin that kind of maps out like this space of things that I've just described. But I would say, broadly speaking, is kind of like learn what a proof is as fast quickly as possible, and then get the abstract algebra and real analysis done. And then after that, you'll have access, start being able to have access to like all the really cool stuff that happens in modern math. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much once again, and it was amazing talking to you. Thank you.